all have stories. Every single one of us. From the highest of the high to the lowest of the low, we all have stories. Exploring the world for the greatest stories of all time.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show.
The Aron O'Dowd Show. Our soul is the screen upon which we project our dreams. What's your story?
Hello and welcome on another incredible show of the Aron O'Dowd Show. If you're listening all over the internet, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment as it helps the show grow and so on. We have another amazing guest today, from engineering to leadership, and he's an author and many other things. Hello and welcome to the show, Peter Ainley. How are you doing today?
Hey, Aaron, I am great. Thank you for that introduction. I'm looking forward to this.
Me too. Tell us the obsession with flying.
The obsession with flying.
Airplanes and for your childhood until now.
Right. I think that started, well, it did start when I was barely a year old and my parents took me overseas for a while. But then in my growing up years, we did a lot of travel as a family to Europe, spending time there. So I was constantly backwards and forwards, Europe to South Africa. And I think once you fly that often at a young age, it kind of gets into your veins, into your blood. And it was just pretty cool back in those days, being able to sit up front, ask the crew, can I go and have a look at the cockpit? And you see outside the windows of the cockpit. It's a pretty spectacular thing. And I think that's what drew me to the whole idea of flying.
You describe in a book a chapter you wrote about being a cigar. Tell us how you describe that.
The use of which, sorry?
The cigar and the plane.
Oh, the cigar.
Yeah.
Well, getting into the technical realm for a moment, when you build an aeroplane, sort of the big passenger airlines, commercial airliners, before they attach the wing and the tail, so they've got the whole fuselage put together, they actually in the industry call it a cigar tube. And that's where it originates from. So I call it a cigar tube, from that. So yes.
Tell us what it's like growing up in South Africa as a kid.
Fun. Weather-wise, it was always great. I mean, it's 8 months of summer allows you to play outside most of the time, and in winter it's not quite as bad as it is maybe in North America, where I am at now. So it was different. It was a land. For me, it was free. I could play outside. I could do things. I did a lot of, in my teenage years, I did a lot of hiking and camping and that sort of thing. So it was a freeing experience of being in the outdoors. So I spent most of my time outdoors. I was an outdoor kid.
What do you like about being in the outdoors?
There's something that nourishes the soul, being around nature, being in the natural environment, the trees and the vegetation and animals, just being around there. For me, it's a way to get grounded, to just discard all the worries and woes of the world and just be at one with what God created.
And has that been your sacred place where you go to unwind and find tips of knowledge and stuff like that?
It's where I go if I want to think, if I want to process, and just get out there and not, no technology, just get out there. I might take my camera, but beyond that, it's just being out in an environment where I can just be me and not worry about it.
Why is it important for you to be free?
Why is it important for me to be free? For me to be able to have an impact in this world, it needs to come from who I am and who I was created to be, as opposed to being confined. And I think that's the biggest element for me in the terms of the freedom, because it allows me to express in a way, in my way, the messages, the what I want to express, the impact I want to make in the world, without having to worry about things. I don't live well in the constraints of being boxed in and having all sides of my life controlled. So for me, that freedom allows me to express myself and have the impact that I want to have in the world.
Has that been a struggle throughout life to have the experience of freedom?
There have been instances where I have felt constrained, and that has sort of ruffled. I often say that in my corporate experience, so when I was an employee, I'd often have run-ins with the bosses, and that not because I was just trying to be difficult, but I could see things and I know I could make impacts there, but that didn't always flow with what they wanted. So yeah, I guess that's probably some of the areas where freedom wasn't quite what I was experiencing and needed to escape from.
And how did you figure out those escapes to freedom? Was it nature again?
Well, I ended up doing a heck of a lot of travel from I've lived in 7 countries, and having done that kind of travel, working in different environments, living in different environments, it's given me a very different perspective on the world, on people, on business, and how I can be me, and seeing how that. So I think that's probably the elements that have helped me to recognize myself and what I needed, what spoke to my soul, what fed me, was that level of travel that I've done, to recognize that I need that level of freedom to be able to live to my maximum potential.
Was entrepreneur big in your family?
No, not at all. I think I'm the first person who stepped out into entrepreneurship. I definitely, on my father's side of the family, on my mom's side of the family, there's one cousin who's done some entrepreneurial stuff, but the rest of it, we've all been faithful employees. So I've stepped out.
It must have been hard to be the only one that's stepping out in your family.
Well, I've had a few. I've had my brother turn around and say, "When are you going to get a real job?" Yeah. So, but yes, it's been an interesting journey. So, not always been fully supported, but I won't trade it. So,
You wouldn't trade the struggles you faced to get to this stage.
no, I in hindsight, I won't. I mean, in the moment when you look at the struggle and you got this Mount Everest in front of you that you got to scale and all of that, you think, is it worth it? Shouldn't I just go out and get a job and just be quiet and head down and do your thing? And then you look back over it and say, well, it's shaped who I am. The struggles, the journeys, I'll call it the fight for my own freedom, has contributed to shaping who I am and how and why I want to make the impact in the world. So,
And as a kid, you had that dream to be an entrepreneur.
it wasn't an entrepreneur. At least as a kid, I didn't even know what the word meant. What's this big E word? I have no idea. I couldn't even spell it to begin with. And it was more, I think the first dream, or the first aspect of the dream that led to the entrepreneurial side of it was I wanted to be a CEO or an executive of a reasonably sized company because I could make an impact. But I didn't see the CEO equate necessarily to the entrepreneurship aspect of it. And now I'm beginning to see more, well, being the CEO as an entrepreneur has its advantage for me in terms of it allows me to express the impact that I want to make. I have more impact that way.
What is the impact you want to create?
The impact I want to create is I've experienced what, and I'm going to say it this way, what bad leadership is, where people don't understand their role as a leader in any type of organization and the impact that it has on the people, the employees in that organization at that point. It tends to be often a negative impact. There are a few that are positive. Sure, I don't want to broad brush everybody as being a bad leader, but the experiences that I've had in terms of bad leadership have left me sort of questioning and challenging and wondering what is wrong. And through the course of my last 30 years, I've had to develop my own leadership. I've led teams, I've led departments, I've run my own companies. I've had to learn what leadership is the hard way and figure out the human factor in leadership and the importance of that, not just the strategy and the management side of it, but the human factor, which is where leadership comes in. And really then, so my impact that I want to make looking at that is I want to transform leaders. I want to transform leadership so that humanity can ultimately thrive. Because when you have good, solid leadership at the head of an organization, and that is able to flow through the organization, you've got an organization of people, a group of employees that are thriving, that want to be there, that want to make an impact, and that has a ripple effect out into the communities and obviously into the rest of the world as well at that point. But it allows humanity to thrive so much better. And I think we all deserve that.
We sure do. Did you grow up as a leader, Peter, or was it something you gained as a skill?
The answer to that is both. It's a skill that I had to develop and understand more and the real nuances. But as a kid, whenever the opportunity arose in amongst a group of peers, of friends, to step into some form of leadership role, I either pushed into it or just naturally took on that leadership role because nobody else did. So I think that element was there to begin with. And then it was just a matter of honing it and expanding on it and really getting to understand what leadership is. So it's a combination.
And how does it feel to be a leader?
How does it feel? I'm not driven by the ego of it. I'm driven by how can I impact and influence other people's lives for the better. So for me, in terms of that feeling of leadership, that's empowering when I can see the positive impact that I can have, when I can see the positive results and how people in general then respond and can actually live their lives more fulfilled. That excites me. That then I feel, if you will, fulfilled. And so that's for me is where the leadership is. It feels good. It feels right. And it feels I'm making a difference.
When you see your father was an engineer, tell us about that, and did it go on to you becoming an engineer?
I definitely think that my dad being the engineer and showing me a lot of, shall we call, practical things, maintaining my first car and fixing things and that kind of thing, had a strong influence on me becoming an engineer. It was sort of, I know I wanted to be a pilot, but back in the day in South Africa, the viability of that and trying to get into that wasn't the best move necessarily career-wise. So I went into engineering. Well, what else am I going to do? Because it was what made most sense. And having that exposure to a dad who was an engineer, it just became a natural extension. It was just a question of what engineering was I going to do, and that. So definitely being exposed to somebody who helped me figure out how to maintain my car. I jokingly say that I had an old 73 Beetle, VW Beetle, and I got it down to a fine art that I could whip the engine out in under 20 minutes. I thought that was a major feat. So in maintaining it, I could pull the engine out in 20 minutes. Yes. So I guess that's the biggest exposure to engineering right there.
Well, that's accomplishment in some way.
So don't ask me to do it now. I mean, the newer cars ain't going to happen that quickly. Forget about getting it back in. So, yeah.
And seeing you as a pilot, that's a cool one. I wish you were a pilot, because I could be saying, hey, take me here, take me there. But,
Yeah, I wish I could take myself here and there too.
And when you were up traveling around the world as a child and growing up in the air, did you feel like a sense of like, I can fly in some way,
Well, and how old was I? Somewhere in my mid-teens, I had the opportunity to go up in a glider. And if you've never done that, I really encourage people to do it, because it's a completely, the experience is completely different to sitting in a seat with 200, 300, 400 other people in a commercial airliner. When you're in a glider, in this case it was myself and obviously the pilot, there's no engine sound. You hear, depending on what's going on, you hear a bit of the wind flowing over the cockpit. But that sense of freedom, of just being able to soar in the sky, much like an eagle, I mean, that's, to me, flying, freedom, that's where the two just totally come together and equate. That's the ultimate sense of freedom, is being able to fly free like a bird. So, yeah.
How does that feeling feel for you?
Ooh. Well, I guess one way of describing it is ecstatic. It's hard to describe in words. It's something one has to experience and feel, that, because you can just, when you're flying a glider, you're obviously picking up on the thermals, because that gives you the lift. And then you come down and you're flying back. It's exactly like you would see an eagle in the sky flying. It's the same sort of experience, because you don't have the noise of an engine or a propeller engine turning. It's just, it's very difficult, and for me it's very difficult to describe what that feeling is. But it just lifts you up. You're just so connected. You're just so, there's nothing holding you down. It's lightweight maybe, but there's this lightness to it. Exhilaration. It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow. And do you miss flying?
Well, I miss being up front. Let's put it that way. Sitting at the back of a cigar tube versus the front of the cigar tube, there is a distinction. But yes, I mean, my goal is to still get my license, my pilot's license, so I can do my own flying. That's still very much at the forefront of one of the things I want to accomplish. So, I mean, do I miss it? Yes, I do. I think I have to say, yes, I do. So, I mean, in 2 days, I get onto a commercial airliner again, and I'm flying. I've got 2 days of flying ahead of me. Yeah. So,
I guess when you sit in as a passenger, you think this is how it's going to work. At this amount of air, we're going to do this. You're like the passenger who can't be sitting beside you, telling you left and right, right?
I don't really talk to everybody what's going on and that. I talk to myself. Okay, this is happening now. Okay, that's what he's going to do. And, I just, yeah, because I always try and get a window seat, because I like looking out. It's to what's going on outside. So.
Wow. And when you're looking out the windows, is your photography eye looking at the altitude and the images through the window taking off and taking landing?
Definitely. I mean, I've taken many a photograph through the window of a cigar tube, and yeah, I do. I look at things from that perspective as well, very much so.
And having an engineer mind, do you see the landscape in a left brain interpretation?
I see the creative side of it. I don't think I see it as much of the engineering left brain as I see the creative aspect of it. And that's so more to your earlier question about the photography, the photographer's eye through it. I look at more of the landscape through that perspective than the engineering.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about how did you struggle with confidence in achieving the leader that you are?
The struggle of my confidence. Wow. That's not a short answer in that sense. I went through a couple of challenges in my childhood where the confidence got really knocked out of me. Confidence in who I am. So there's the element of personal confidence that I every now and again struggle with. Then there's a professional confidence. The professional confidence I built up over time as I got better at doing things and understanding, before I fully understood leadership, but understanding some of the human elements that were there and being able to utilize that and recognize things. And the more I understood about the engineering, the technical side, the engineering side of things, it very quickly built up my confidence because I developed an intuitive way of looking at things, at problems, and developing the solution very quickly. And that just helped build my professional confidence, and that expands over then into leadership. The more I understood and developed my own leadership and what leadership truly is, it just skyrocketed that confidence then too. So it's as I worked through stuff, blundered through stuff, figured it out, developed it, kept learning. So I've been on an ongoing learning process for me, and just learning and understanding, employing, using it, that has built my confidence, definitely.
And if you could look back, what is confidence for you?
What is confidence? I think that for me, confidence is not arrogantly or egotistically knowing I can solve something, but knowing innately that by solving this, I'm helping someone. By helping someone overcome or become better or live more into their potential, I can impart some of that confidence that I've gained with them. So for me, confidence then becomes about knowing that I can help somebody and make an impact, have an influence for good, is the confidence that I can have. And that's why I say there's a distinction, and maybe it's even a very fine line between knowing I can do it because of the positive aspect and the impact that I can have, versus the ego and the arrogance saying, well, I'm confident I can do it all. There's a humility factor that comes into confidence for me. Bringing humility in with the confidence of being able to do something, knowing I can do something. I think that speaks to true confidence, what really true confidence is. Because true confidence, you want to use that for the betterment of those around you and for society at large.
How do you marry confidence, leadership, intuition, all these fine ingredients like you're cooking into being the authentic leader that you are?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it comes down to any recipe that you really like making. It doesn't matter if it's a baking recipe or a meal recipe. is a trial and error. So trying out different ingredients, different quantities of ingredients, and finding that right balance where everything just perfectly, all the flavors come out in the right ratios, come out in the right proportions, and really lift the core ingredient to another level and really amplify its flavor. So bringing confidence, bringing humility, bringing character into with what leadership is. It's almost like it's like a recipe, but everybody's recipe is unique, and we all bring our uniqueness to the table. So it's figuring out what combination of ingredients make up the right, shall we call in this case, the right combination for you to be the most effective leader. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think a recipe is probably the best way. The trial and error, it's trial and error. It's a process you have to go through and figure it out. There's no, oh, here's a recipe to be a perfect leader. Just follow that and, you got it made. It doesn't quite work at that, because a lot of it is understanding who you are as an individual, as a leader, to make up that recipe.
So I could open a box of Cheerios, pour it, add milk, and there I'm a leader. Is that right?
If it was that easy, or maybe that is the problem, that too many people think it is that, but in reality, it's not.
Oh, so, I wish it was.
Yeah, I think you and many others do too. So,
what leaders inspire you to feel like I should be like them as a hero for your leadership skills?
I'll go so far as to caveat that and say there's no one leader that, as a leader overall in their entire dimension, that, oh, I want to be like that. It's more, there's a number of different people that I've looked at. Oh, there's that aspect of their leadership that speaks to me. There's that aspect from this other leader and from that other. So it's a combination, if you will, of taking some of people's strength that they exhibit in their leadership and saying, that speaks to me. I want more of that, and bring it in because it relates to who I am. I think that's one of the key things to understand. Yes, we might have one particular person that we look up to as an example of phenomenal leadership. And it's recognizing, or what is it in their leadership that I relate to, that resonates with me, and taking that and working on that and developing that, as opposed to it just being a person, and that person is the best leader ever, and I want to be exactly like them. It's more a combination. Like a recipe we just spoke about.
Yeah. And how did you get from the engineer to the leader?
That's a good question. A lot of my engineering days, there's the engineering where I design solutions, but it's then the execution of that solution. So the project management side of it, that then required me to engage with other people, with other disciplines, to make that solution a reality. And that became an ongoing thing. The more projects I ran, the bigger the project came, the more people I had to engage with, the more people I had to bring in and lead and inspire and influence to really affect a good, solid outcome for a project that obviously you get paid for, but that the client was ultimately very happy with. So I think that is sort of the progression of leadership. And then I've only stepped out into the realms of entrepreneurship, employed my own people, employed my own engineers and all of that. I very quickly had to figure out what leadership was at that point. Not just managing a project by leading all the people in it, but now I had employees. Well, I had to lead them too. So it was a progression, a journey from just doing pure engineering, designing calculations and whatnot, to actually the execution of that solution design. because it required so many other people to be involved.
Was it scary stepping up from the engineer to the leader?
You know, I think I had a question, could I do it? Sort of my own internal dialogue questioning and the confidence factor. But the more I did it, the more confident I got at it. So, and because to me, there was a natural element for me to be able to do it, even though there was an element of fear as well. But I'd known I'd done it before, so there wasn't as much fear. And I actually very quickly enjoyed that more than doing all the number crunching and design work, sitting behind computers and calculators and spreadsheets and whatnot, to actually being more people engaged. I ended up enjoying that a heck of a lot more. And I think that's why leadership has become, for me, a passion now.
What do you enjoy about it?
The people engagement, being able to actually work with people that they can, that they're in what they're doing, they can do it a lot better. They are thriving. They're enjoying what they're doing, because for me, leadership is about shoulder to shoulder, as opposed to sitting on a pedestal with a whip and ordering everybody around. That's more of a dictatorship. So for me, leadership is being side by side, helping people, working with people. Here, let me show you how to do this. Oh, that's a good idea. Explain this more to me. Hey, this is great. Let's make that happen. And you're working with the people, because I very quickly learned I didn't have all the answers. But I know that as a group of people, as a team, we had the answers that we needed. Because everybody had a perspective, everybody had insights, everybody had knowledge. And when you pull that together, for me, it created a much more cohesive team, opened up the channels of communication because I allowed people to share and I sought the input from people. So, yeah, it just created a much better environment. And that's what leadership is ultimately about, making that happen.
I see you as the handle bringing the elephant with the soldiers to bring them to Rome, probably,
Yeah, and wanting to go there, yes. Yeah.
Were your parents leaders in any way?
Well, Mom was the leader of the house in the sense of when I was born and my brother were born, she stayed at home and she led that. Dad was a leader at work. I don't know if his leadership influenced me that much. It may have. I've never thought about it that way. But Dad wasn't a leader of a multinational company or anything like that. Dad was a technical leader in the organization, in a relatively small organization that he worked, being head of engineering and that, but nothing, no big leader. But leadership isn't about just being the head of a multinational. Leadership starts with leading yourself. So in some ways, yes, he was a leader. Yeah.
So I guess you didn't lick it off the stamp and there's Peter the leader,
I mean, there's probably some influence, but
Yeah.
the gene does travel. But yeah. I think there's a different level of leadership that I'm looking at now. Stepping, that's maybe a bad analogy, but taking what my parents have shown me or taught me as a child unknowingly, and just taking that to another level because there was something innately in me that spoke to leadership. Yeah.
Transitioning from leader in a corporation to a leader and an entrepreneur, tell us about how that transition happened.
By necessity. Yeah, in the corporate world, yes, I was leadership. I had leadership positions and running things, running divisions and departments and stuff like that. And then when you step out into your own business. So when I started my own consulting practice with a friend, I had to step into leadership. We employed people. I had to lead. I had no choice. I had to figure it out and figure it out fast. So it was by necessity in some ways, in that respect. And then recognizing more and more in the different ventures that I've done, leading self is the key. You have to be able to lead yourself first before you can ever lead anybody else. So necessity, I think, is the short answer to your question.
Explain more about when you say leading yourself.
So the big thing I recognized over my 30 years of leadership and all the things that I've done, my entrepreneurial ventures and so on, is that who am I? Who am I in this position? Who am I in this role? Who am I in the context of everything that I am doing? So the question in terms of leadership then is, who am I as a leader? And leading self becomes the step you have to take. There's things you have to do for yourself. Sitting on the sofa and doing nothing, believe it or not, is leading yourself by doing nothing, but it doesn't help others to follow you. So the more, when you show character, when you show discipline, when you show restraint, when you show self-control, those are elements of self-leadership. People see that. And then people can either associate with it, from a positive perspective, or they associate from a negative perspective. And that partly has an impact on how you influence them. So the more you lead yourself effectively, the more you show upright character, the more disciplined you are, the more self-control you exhibit in whatever situations you find yourself, the greater the positive influence you have on those around you. So then when you're looking at your own people, your own employees and such like that, when they see that, they're more inclined to, quote, do as you say. You have greater positive influence with them to get them to do what needs to be done. But it's leading them to do it. So if you don't start with leading yourself in the context that I've just defined, people see that and then question, well, why should I do what you tell me? If they don't see you leading yourself first, doing what you say, walking the talk that you talk. So that's when I talk, those are some of the aspects of when I say you've got to lead yourself first before you can lead anybody else. People very quickly pick up who you are, who your character is, who you are as a person by how you're leading yourself.
I guess you're doing that every day, right?
Do I have a choice? No. Yes, I do. I have to. So.
Yeah, you sit in the sofa and lead with a whip. That's Peter for tea.
Yeah, get the whip out, whooping myself on the back. Yeah, not quite. It comes down to discipline. It's you want to do it because of the impact that it has. So,
the people that are around you, do you give impact to them in some way?
I'd like to think so. I'd like to think I have a positive impact on those around them, that I lift them, that I empower them, that I make them feel good about themselves, that I encourage them because I can see the potential in them and therefore attempt to lift them so they can be better. Absolutely, yeah.
Do you miss the engineering?
Honestly, no, not really. I prefer the human side of things. The leadership side is a lot more enjoyable for me than the engineering, to be honest. Yeah, I don't miss it.
And what would be your superpower?
What is my superpower? Seeing things that other people don't and being the
Yes.
calm in the storm.
Tell us more about that.
Seeing things that other people don't, I think is the strength, the superpower that I have from a consulting perspective, even doing the leadership consulting side of things, being able to see what's going on that people don't necessarily see, the undercurrents that are going on and the dynamics that are going on. And then being the calm in the storm, that's been reflected back to me on several occasions when things are going wrong. Projects are off the rails. People are jumping off the walls because this isn't working, that's not working. Whatever the chaos is, I have been known, and that, like I said, people have told me this. I just come in. I am calm. As the expression goes, cool as a cucumber. But I'm calm, and I can bring that chaos, calm it down, and bring the people together, and just basically settle the energy and come up with a solution and guide them from that. So that's the calm in the storm. Yeah.
When you're in that space, is that when intuition is kicking in through you?
Yes. Yeah. Your intuition, recognizing things, seeing things, and then responding appropriately to bring that calm into place.
So you're the vacuum that cleans all the dust bunnies.
Am I cleaning up the dust bunnies? Yeah, well, that's an interesting way of putting it. Maybe I'm gathering the dust bunnies and letting them be dealt with. But yeah, I mean, I stop the wind blowing them everywhere. Let's put it that way.
Oh, and in engineering, do you have a love for cars and Formula One?
I'll be honest, I have a passing interest. I wouldn't say I have a focused interest in it as much. It's kind of cool to watch when I get a chance. But, if you put cars and Formula One here and you put an aeroplane over there, yeah, I think I'll gravitate to the aeroplane long before I gravitate to the Formula One car.
Yeah, seeing you in a F9 and F11 jet when it knocks you speed.
Yeah, you'll probably find me doing that before I'm sort of screaming around a racetrack in a Formula One car. Yes.
And doing loop-de-loops in the sky,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm up for that one first, thanks. Yes. Sign me up.
Wow. And as a soul who's doing all these incredible things, do you look back and think, wow, I've achieved some amazing things?
Yeah, I can be a bit hard on myself and sort of be more critical of my own journey, if you will. But to your point, I bring a bit of humility into that. Yes, I've achieved things and I'll acknowledge that and I'm grateful for it. And I look at where have I made the best impact, and that helps me feel better about it. I know that I've had a positive impact here. I've made a difference there. I feel good about it. Yeah.
Legacy is a word we throw around a lot in the world. But what would you like to leave behind for you?
A better world, I'd like to leave behind a leadership. I guess in some ways it's a philosophy, but an approach to leadership that is more, that helps humanity thrive more, and being known for that I've been able to make that impact and really bring a new form of leadership to the world and to leaders in general, because they feel better about themselves. So that's probably the best way I can describe that legacy, because of the impact that it's had. The positive. Let me make sure it's a positive impact.
And when you say new leadership, would that be authentic leadership or a new style? What do you mean?
So I call it true leadership. It's partly a style. Is authenticity part of it? Yes, but I wouldn't call it authentic. I wouldn't define it as purely authentic leadership, because being authentic is something you have to be as a leader, but there's a number of other elements that come into it, and that's why I define it as true leadership.
Wow. So everyone that has a leader is a true leader. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I seek to empower people to become, as true leaders. Yeah, and that's what I seek to do through my company as a team of people, is to help people become true leaders.
Peter, listening to you, I don't see you as a lemonade kid on the stand trying to.
No, I never had that lemonade on the corner, on the corner street. No, I never did that. Nope. That's why I say entrepreneurship isn't exactly rampant in my family. It's not something I did. So it was something that came about.
It must be in the Bones view, going from the lemonade stand to airplane to leadership. Like there's something there,
Yeah, there must be something there. There's got to be a thread in there. Absolutely, yeah.
And as your kid looking back, is this the projection and the journey you feel like, yeah, I did it,
Well, it's definitely a journey that I wasn't anticipating. I mean, I didn't map this journey out, that's for sure. I had a very different kind of idea of the map, or the flight plan, if you will, that I was going to take. It's been more of an adventure, and going through the unknowns, and just facing the unknowns and figuring it out as you go. We often talk about you got to fly the plane, but you're building the plane while you're flying it. Yeah, because you have no idea where you're going. So it's not the plan I thought, but it's definitely been a good one in the end. So,
would you like to change anything on that projection of your journey?
Yeah, I've often thought about that. If I were to change anything, I think it would change who I am today. So would I want to change that? Probably not. So no.
And if you had the chance to replace anything, would you do it or not?
I'd like to say I'd like to do a few things differently, but if I'd done them differently, I don't think I'd be where I am today, or be who I am today. So it becomes this sort of, if you had a time machine and go back and do that differently, but then you've got a whole set of other unknowns. And I think the journey that I've been on has shaped who I am. So I have to say, no, I wouldn't change. As much as I'd like to change some of the challenges and hard experiences and so on, but I do recognize at the same time that they've shaped who I am. So no.
Dude, I thought you'd invented the time machine already. We could go back and take a look,
Yeah, I know the flux capacitor keeps failing on me. So, what can I say? I haven't quite figured out the engineering on that one.
Come on, man, you have the skills. Like, you should have it done now,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to be the wizard, but I haven't figured that one out yet.
or the teleportation,
Yeah, I call it the beam me up Scotty machine, but yeah, that isn't working. It's also another flux capacitor problem. That. Yeah.
It sounds like a toilet bowl. You're missing the flux there,
Something like that, yes.
What would, if as an engineer, what would you like to build?
A time machine? No. What would I like to build as an engineer? I never thought about that. What would I like to build? I mean, it would be great if we could figure out the perpetual motion machine, but I don't know. I've never thought about that one. I'd have to spend some time pondering that one. What would I like to have built as an engineer? No idea, really, because I ended up engineering more of leadership than I did technology, if you will. So,
But have you, in leadership, has there anything you would like to build or thought of building?
I would absolutely like to build up companies that have a thriving culture, that where everybody really wants to be there and work together for the greater cause of what they're doing. That people want to be there, they want to show up, they enjoy working there, they want to collaborate, they want to innovate, because the culture, the environment is such that it's conducive to that, because the leaders of the company want to create that, and they're all together on the same page. That's what I love creating with what I do with leadership. It's creating those companies where people want to be, want to work, and want to work together with their colleagues there.
Wow, they sound like fun Lego bricks to put together.
Yeah, I guess it's a combination of Lego bricks, but it's also helping people build their own bricks to make it a unique tapestry.
I love that. It's a good combination of images and textures and flavors.
Yes. Back to our recipe.
The human recipe, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely a recipe.
Your 2 eggs, your flour, your chocolate, your vanilla, there you go, you know?
Yes. Should put that together, actually.
Yeah,
Call it the recipe for leadership.
There you
There's
go.
a thought.
When you talk about culture, what is culture?
So culture is, the way I would put it, is an environment that you create that empowers, encourages, inspires people to be the best they can be, to support one another to be that, and want and creating that environment where people want to be. They want to be a part of it, but they want to bring their friends there too, because everybody is considered and respected for who they are. That's probably the way I would go around and describe it. A little differently to what probably mainstream would describe it, but yeah.
Sounds like a playground at school. Everyone plays nice, and the monkey bars, the slides, the swings, you know?
Well, it is that, but it's also that environment when there is disagreement and conflict, there is a way to work it out that doesn't leave people, it doesn't create animosity and people feeling like they've got the short straw and their grudges remain. Because there's nothing wrong with conflict in the leadership, in anything. It's how you deal with the conflict. So having a culture that allows you to deal with the conflicts that arise with the differences of opinion and different ideas is part of what is a critical ingredient for creating a culture in an organization, that you're going to have a thriving organization that produces the best widget out there, that has growth and has revenue, none other, right? So those are all some of the ingredients for that.
It comes back to the cake recipe.
It does.
You know, we can talk about all different aspects of leadership, culture, intuition, but it comes back to us and the cake recipe, you know?
Yeah, there you go. Comes back to the person who's leading it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we have the soul, who's the driver of the car. How does that fit into leadership?
The soul. I mean, the soul is at the core of who we are as individuals, as human beings. And when you take that out of the equation, you're missing a key element of leadership. You're taking out the essence of the human factor of leadership, because that's what the soul is, what in many ways characterizes us as human beings. So removing that, you take out the character of the human being. And you can't do that in leadership because we're dealing with human beings.
Human beings. Who would think?
Who would think? Yeah. Planet's made up of 8 billion human beings. Let's start leading.
All in their spacesuits.
Yes.
Peter, what inspires you?
What inspires me?
Yes.
To empower people to become all they are meant to be, all they can be, so that they can in turn impact in a positive way those they encounter on a daily basis.
If someone met you on Zoom or on the street or in an airport and they asked, Peter, I'm struggling with something, what advice would you give in a general sense?
An element, there'd be a dash of self-awareness. What's the perspective you can gain? And how would you want to be responded to? How would you want to be dealt with this? And do that and respond in that way. The way you'd want somebody else to respond to you, respond in that way to deal with whatever the situation is. So it's a combination of self-awareness, gain some perspective from the right people, ask people you trust, and then think about how you would want to be on the receiving end of what you need to do and respond that way.
Awesome. I guess when you reach the pearly gates, you're going to talk to God and say, hey, God, this is how leadership went, you know?
I think he's going to tell me if I got it right or wrong.
When you do, WhatsApp me the response, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Peter, if people want to find out more or get in touch with you, where can they go?
Where can they go? Well, LinkedIn is the best there. It's the best place to reach me out on that, or you can drop me an email at peter at los-global.com. Those are the easiest ones, but reach out to me on those. Be happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. And if you've got anything more specific that you want to reach out, DM me on LinkedIn or send me an email.
I see you as the next Manson Mandela, Peter. Is that you're striving to be?
I'm going to be bold and say that, and then some, maybe, with taking the arrogance out of that one. But yeah, with humility.
Peter, I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a blast, and wow, you're leading the world to define leadership in your authentic way.
Appreciate it, Aaron. Thanks very much for having me. It was a blast. Thank you.
You know, we all want to lead in our specific ways. We all want to show, look at me, to be heard, understood, and seen. And that's what the Soul Lens provides through us. And check out next week's episode as we go through another incredible Soul Lens to figure out what makes them seen, heard, understood, and the superhero they are. So rock on, and remember, you rock.
Thank you for listening to the Aron O'Dowd Show, where the world's best stories are told. If you like, please post a review or subscribe to the show. To find out more, contact us at aronodowd.com. That's ARONODOWD.com. We're always ready to share another magnificent tale from the world's best storytellers. So stay tuned and rock on.